If there's one thing I know to be true about every single creator listening right now, it's that you're probably getting ghosted by brands. No matter who you are, no matter how many followers you have, it does not matter. You're gonna get ghosted by brands. The reasons for this can vary, and we're gonna be talking about 5 different reasons that you might be getting ghosted by brands when it comes to your brand collaborations, and the 5 ways that you can actually fix that right now. I'm Kristen Busquet. I've been a full-time creator for over 3 years, and I've brought in over $350,000 from sponsored posts and content creation collaborations with brands so far. Social Scoop is the podcast where we teach you, the entrepreneurial creator, to turn your online influence and creativity into a profitable, self-sustaining business. I'd first like to acknowledge how frustrating this is. Again, no matter how many followers you have, maybe you think, oh, well, if I become a macro influencer or if I have 1 million followers, like this is never going to happen to me again. It's simply not true. This is something that all of us as creators go through, just like imposter syndrome and rejection and all of that good, fun stuff. This is something that happens to all of us. So if you're feeling it, just know, first of all, that you're not alone here. Second thing that I want to talk about today is that there's so many different reasons why this could be happening. Today we're going to be only talking about 5 of them, but realistically there's probably hundreds of different reasons that you could be getting ghosted by brands. And actually the reasons we're going to talk about today aren't all actually bad reasons. Sometimes you're getting ghosted, but it's not a closed door. And actually most of the times I would argue that it's not necessarily a closed door. So, the first one that I want to talk about today is that maybe right at this moment, brands are not casting creators like you, right? So, that could mean so many different things. I'll give you a really great example of this. A few years ago, there was an ice cream company that I posted about. I had randomly tried it somewhere and I posted about them. We ended up doing a little gifting exchange where they sent me some product without obligation. And I was like, love this ice cream. I want to tell everyone about it. And I obviously would love to get paid to do that. So I reached out to them to potentially talk about a paid partnership. And wouldn't you know it, they actually were not casting creators in my area at the time because there were not grocery stores in my area that actively carried the product. This was something that I had been shipped. So, because they really wanted to focus on specifically working with creators who were by those grocery store chains that actually carried the product, that wasn't a good fit for that campaign. Maybe in the future, right, when they come into my area or when they're focusing maybe on online sales, if that's something they wanted to focus on, maybe we could have a conversation. But because I wasn't part of that location demographic, I wasn't the right creator for them. Does that mean it's a problem on my end, right? Of course not, right? Like I'm not in a bad location. I live in a city. Plenty of people can go to different grocery stores around me and get a bunch of great products. But for that specific product, I was not a match. So don't take that to heart. There's potentially other campaigns that will come up with those brands that you might be a good fit for, but it doesn't mean you're always going to be a good fit for every campaign with a brand. And that's not a you problem, right? Now, the other thing that might play into why you're getting ghosted in this capacity could also be demographics, age, race, gender, etc. There could be so many different things. For example, maybe there is a product that is specifically releasing darker skin tone foundations, right? Like they're going to obviously be casting creators that have darker skin tones, right? Like I am the palest person on planet Earth. I'm not getting casted for this campaign. Again, does that mean there's anything wrong with me? Of course not. But it's just that I wasn't the right fit for that campaign at that exact time with that brand. And now, to say all of this is to also say that this is why pitching can be so tricky. You've heard me talk about it on this podcast before. Pitching is essentially a shot in the dark. You have no idea what campaigns that brand is casting for, who they're looking for, what platforms they're looking for creators on. Maybe they have a certain follower count that they're looking for, maybe a certain location demographic, an age demographic. we have absolutely no idea what is going on inside. And so this is actually one of the reasons why I love the anti-pitch method so much, is because let the brand get to know you so that when there is a campaign where they're coming out with the lightest foundations and I'm like, perfect, that is up my alley, I can say, okay, hey, you guys already know me. They're saying, oh, Kristen, she's pale. Let's maybe get her on the campaign, right? So you can essentially just put yourself in front of the brands that you want to be working with, let them get to know you so that when something does come up, you are a good fit for, that brand knows that they can reach out to you directly. Instead of you just sending out 5 gazillion pitch emails that you have absolutely no idea if the brand even has any need for. Sometimes I find that our time is just better spent elsewhere, like making connections with these brands. So again, when there are campaigns that pop up, they're like, oh, perfect, we can reach out to that person. So, one of the things that I would recommend as kind of an action item, if you find that this is maybe why you're getting ghosted, is to do your research before you are sending any sort of outreach, whether it's anti pitch method or it is a regular pitch email. You need to make sure that you're doing your research. Look at the news that is happening for this brand. Are they launching only in a certain city? Chances are they're probably going to look for the creators in that city. Is it something that they're launching that is for people 50 plus? If you're not 50 plus, maybe it's not the right time. So, this is the research that you should be doing in order to understand a little bit more about potentially where that brand's marketing efforts are going to be going. Not to say that if you don't align with maybe what those goals are, that you should just write off the brand. I still think it's always worth introducing yourself because, again, when campaigns come up that are a good fit for you, of course, the brand can reach out. But just don't put all your eggs in the basket of sending a pitch, even if you do your research, that might not be any sort of guarantee that you're still going to get any sort of partnership out of it. But moral of the story is anti pitch is always a good thing to fall back on so that you can have more brands reaching out to you and it's less work that essentially you'll have to do, which is always really nice. Now, the second reason why you might be getting ghosted is maybe the brand has already allocated their budget. Now, every different brand is going to cast in different ways. There are a lot of brands who are casting in a campaign based model. So every time they have a campaign, they're like, great, we need to find talent for this campaign. They go out and cast, everything is great. Maybe there are some brands that are just always casting. Maybe there are some that cast much more certain times of the year, or maybe they, in the beginning of the year, in January or February, cast their campaigns for the entire year. You have no idea, again, what those inner workings of each brand is going to look like, but just know that they probably all look a little different. Not every brand is going to have their biggest budget during the holiday season, contrary to what we may have primarily heard on the internet. Now, I'll give you an example. Actually, a friend of mine a couple years ago worked with Lowe's Home Improvement, and they actually casted her for a campaign in January where it was 12 posts, 1 post per month for the whole entire year. And like that was their big campaign, their big long-term campaign. Casted it right in January, and then who knows if they were looking for influencers at all the rest of the year, which sounds crazy, but there are a lot of brands who do it that way. And that might be a brand that for February through December, people were constantly sending pitch emails to. And guess what? Maybe they're not even looking for influencers. And you have wasted an entire year of sending out pitches to Lowe's and they're literally just not even casting creators. So some brands do this. Now, the other thing that might have happened budget related is maybe your rates are too high for what money they have to spend or what money they have left to spend. If you catch a brand as they're actively casting, they may have already committed to a certain number of other creators. And then at that point, maybe they only have $500 left and your rate is $3,000. There's really not a ton that they can do there, right? So that could happen and very often does happen. The other thing is just maybe in general, your rates are too high. Now, I really want to stress this point, and I just made a video about this last week on Instagram. This is not a sign that you should necessarily lower your prices. Just because one brand says, yeah, your rates are way too high for us, does not mean they are too high, period. Right? I have rates that for some brands are extremely out of their budget. I have other brands that literally don't even bat an eyelash when I send them thousands of dollars in a proposal. So every single brand is going to have a different budget. You are the boss when it comes to how much you want to actually bend when it comes to how much you're getting paid or how much you're accepting in deals. But just know that if a brand says no, it's out of the budget, that is not a you problem. That is a potential problem of how much money they have in their budget, or honestly, maybe they're a brand that's okay getting mediocre content from someone who will do it cheaper. And again, that is not a you problem. That's not a sign that you should lower your rates. Your rates are what they are, I trust, for a reason, right? And if you feel comfortable with what your rates are and you're like, that is what I want to get paid, I would never tell you to change it. If that's what you want to get paid, that's what your rates should be, right? So I do think that this is something to think about, but it's not something you should think about in the way of, okay, maybe I should change my rates. Maybe I'm the problem. Maybe this is a me issue. Now, when it comes to budget for brands, one thing I did want to mention in this segment as well is about timing, right? We often hear again that many brands have their biggest budget in the holiday season, which is just not true, right? There are plenty of brands who are spending plenty of money throughout the year. It's not just in Q4. Now, think about, for example, a sunscreen brand. If sunscreen's kind of biggest time to sell is probably in the summer, right? Like when everyone's going to the beach and people are going on vacations and all of that, sunscreen brands are very likely going to want to sell a ton in the summer. So their budget's going to probably be high in the summer, but their budget will also probably be pretty high in the spring, right? Because they might need that time to get all the products out, have you as a creator start talking about it. So then when someone's at the beach and they're, at the store grabbing a sunscreen, they're going to go, "Oh, Copper Tone, my favorite influencer just talked about this one. I'm going to pick this one." So you almost need that time to kind of like plant seeds for when people are actually out there purchasing. So think about the busiest season for a brand, if it is a brand that has a busy season, and then think about being a little proactive and actually potentially reaching out, maybe in March for a sunscreen brand, because maybe they're going to cast for a May, June, July type of campaign, and you're going to get your foot in the door before they even start that process. So be proactive, be smart, put your marketing hat on, and kind of think about the brain and power behind all of this and like the strategy behind all of that. This is also another really great case for the anti-pitch method. I think personally, like, if you are working with a brand and you want them to pay your rates, you very often should have some sort of a relationship with them. I think it's so much easier to get your potentially high rates accepted by a brand who knows you, believes in you, knows that you give good results, like knows you're great to work with, and can already attest to that versus they don't even know you at all, right? So I love to be consistently building relationships with brands, because then I know that when the time does come that I'm going to ask them for money, they're going to feel a little bit more confident at the very least to pay me what I'm asking for. So building those relationships is going to be so important. Now, the third thing that might happen is maybe your email got lost. Let's be honest, you and 5 gazillion other creators are probably sending pitch emails to the same brands. It's very common that your email is literally just in that inbox somewhere. And who knows where it is? It might have gotten deleted. It might have been put in this folder that who knows if we're ever going to look at it. Like, there are a lot of brands who are getting very much spammed with pitch emails from creators, right? So it's very common that your email is just going to get lost. Now, first thing that you might want to look at is your subject line. Is it a subject line that is going to stand out in a potential sea of other creators in their subject lines? Very common is what I see, like brand partnership inquiry, or potential brand collaboration, or your name X brand name. Like those are so boring, so common. That's what everyone else's says. What if you were to send a subject line to a brand that said, like, what if your TikTok brought you an extra $10,000? Like, these are things that might get me clicking, right? So don't be afraid to get a little creative and have fun with your email subject lines. Realistically, that might be what actually gets your email open again in a flooded inbox of other creators sending out pitches. Now, the other thing to do here is, of course, to follow up. I have so many cases where I'll send an email, not get a response. I'll follow up and the brand will go, "Oh my gosh, I didn't even see your first email. Thank you so much for bumping this again." So don't be afraid to come in there maybe every 5 to 7 days and just say, "Hey, like, little nudge. I'm still here, still want to work together. What's up? I exist." And kind of bump that up to the top of their inbox. I also do think that there are better days for sending emails too. Like Mondays, we know on Mondays, like you come back to your email and you're like, whew, there's a lot happening here. I need to get my life together. Maybe Mondays aren't the best day. Fridays, we're like, don't talk to me because I'm half clocked out already. Maybe Friday is not the best day. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, better days to be sending your emails, in my opinion. You can also schedule emails. That's always an option as well. Or again, just don't bother sending pitch emails at all and just build these connections using the anti-pitch method, where you can just have relationships, let the brands come to you when they do have things that come up. And the other thing that I will note here with emails, I think too, it's very easy for them to maybe not even get lost, but get a little ignored, because I'm not going to lie, guys. A lot of the times the emails are just boring. At this point, come on. How many people are sending out pitch emails? They all say the same thing. I don't care if it's your favorite lip gloss you've ever had in your whole life, because guess what? It's everyone else's, or at least that's what they're saying in their pitches. It's so hard to stand out. It's so much easier for you to go and build a friendship, build a relationship with a brand, than it is for you to send an email that literally sounds like everyone else and then hope for the best. Now, the next thing that could be happening when it comes to getting ghosted by brands is that maybe you're not meeting their requirements. And if you guys know me on a level 2 level, like maybe this is level 1, you've listened to the podcast, maybe level 2 and up is like we've had conversations, you've maybe asked for advice, I've given you some advice. You know that level 2 people, like, you guys are getting tough love. And this little segment that I'm about to give you is level 2, okay? We're giving you a little tough love. I'm going to be so honest with you because I don't think that many people will be. I think that there are a lot of creators who are not meeting the standards or the requirements of the brands, right? Everyone wants to be an influencer and everyone can be an influencer, but there is not a completely open barrier to entry here. You need to have skill, you need to have education, you need to know what the hell you're doing and do it well. Now, there are plenty of people who are not, right? Like, simply put, there are people who call themselves content creators who don't create good content, who don't have audiences, who bought followers, who had one viral video and now no one cares about what they have to say. And that is not appealing for a brand. Point blank. Things like low engagement rates or things like inconsistent posting can all make it seem like you are not very reliable or dependable, or maybe like you're not going to produce the ROI that a brand is looking for. Now, I think it's very important for you to work on your craft and work on building your brand and your platform to a point where you can genuinely say, I think it would be worth it for a brand to hire me. There are days when I have very low engagement that I'm just like, I'm not talking to any brands today because I don't know what's happening this week, but like if I posted for a brand this week, it would not be worth their money. And I think it's your job to be honest about those type of things, because if you take on a campaign once and it absolutely does horrible, it's going to be really hard to get a brand to rehire you in many cases. Not all cases, but in many cases. So before you let that happen, or instead of letting that happen, why not take the time to really work on your craft? Educate yourself, figure out how to make videos that hit with your audience, figure out how to build community, and then work on doing that until you genuinely feel you are at a point where it would be worth it for a brand to hire you. I think you have to be honest and be a good partner. And there are plenty of creators who are not and don't do that. So let's give you that little tough love today. Take a hard look at what you're doing and really ask yourself, is it worth it for a brand? Now, the fifth reason that you might be getting ghosted, and this one is potentially the best, it is the best, is that maybe they're talking to their boss about approving your rates, or they're talking to the brand if they're an agency. Let me explain how this works in many cases. First, let's talk about agencies. If a brand hires an agency for managing an influencer campaign, what that means in most cases is that the brand is going to say, "Hey, here's the budget. Here's like what we're thinking. Do your thing." Then the agency goes out and they're like looking at all these creators and gathering rates, and they put them maybe in a big spreadsheet, and then they go, "Okay, in that X amount of dollar budget that the brand gave us, what kind of puzzle pieces can we put together for creators that we can hire that fit this budget and fit what the brand is looking for?" And then what happens once they kind of get that option put together is they're going to show the brand and say, "Here's what we're thinking. Do you like all these people? Do you approve all these people? Do you approve their rates?" Maybe one creator has like a 10 times higher rate than every other creator. The brand might go, "Okay, like talk to me about why this is worth it," right? Like, should we approve this rate? So very often the brand is also going to have to approve the rate, and you're going to kind of have to go through a waiting process of waiting for the brand to approve all of that, or I should say waiting for the agency to bring it to the brand, for them to approve everything, get back to the agency to get back to you. That takes time. It's not always a quick process. Okay, so keep that in mind. Be patient, relax, take a chill pill, and just be patient. The other thing that might happen is maybe you are working with an influencer manager directly at the brand. There's no agency involved. The influencer manager very often might have to go to their higher up, who may have to go to their higher up. And you know how when you're waiting for other people to do things, they just, for whatever reason, feel like it takes so long. I feel like this is that situation, right? Like if I have to go to my boss and ask them for something and they have to go to their boss and ask them for something, it is going to take time. This is not a closed door. It's simply like a you need to be patient, right? So don't feel like this is the end of the world. If you're following up and maybe you're not getting responses, just let the brand do their thing after your follow ups. And hopefully, that does not mean rejection. And they're actually going to get back to you and be like, "Great, we talked with all 500 people we need to talk to get this approved, and we're ready to move forward." It's not always a closed door. In fact, many times I think it is not a closed door. In all of these situations that I've shared here, I don't think any of them are closed doors. And I'll actually give you an example of this. So, the second option we talked about, which was maybe they've already allocated their budget. I actually recently had a partnership. And again, I made a video about this telling the whole story, but it was mid last year, 2024. It's my dream brand. I sent them a very large proposal. Like it was like big rates. And I was like, "Oh, there's no way they're going to go for this, but like this is what my rates are. It is what it is." So I send it out and hope for the best. And no joke, for 6 months I followed up. Like every couple weeks I'd send a follow-up. And then when I didn't hear back from that, I was like, okay, every couple months, like, hello, please don't forget about me. I followed up so much. Heard absolutely nothing. Saw them actively working with other creators and was like, sick. They just, my rates were too high. They think I'm insane, whatever. Turns out December rolls around. I literally get an email response in that same thread. Hey, how are you? Hope everything's going well. We'd love to move forward with that proposal. Me, what? I'm sorry. I thought you were gone, never coming back. Door was absolutely closed, sealed. Nothing was happening here. Okay, I learned that in that situation is like it's not a closed door. I literally signed a $6,000 partnership the same day that she emailed me saying, "Hey, just coming back to talk about this proposal again." It is not always a closed door in any of these situations. So while it might be super, super frustrating to get ghosted all the time, and again, it's happening to all of us, just know that very, very often these are not closed doors. You have to hold the hope. You have to keep working towards it. Keep trying to make it happen, bettering yourself, bettering your business, bettering your content. And then hopefully that is going to lead to a point where they're actually coming back to you and they're like, "Hey, just kidding, not ghosting you. We're here and we're ready to pay you." So I hope this episode was helpful. Please send me a DM if you loved anything about this episode and wanted to share it with me. I always love getting those DMs. Literally makes my day. I never ever say this, but guys, if you want to leave a review, I love seeing those reviews. I literally get them and I like see every single one, even if it's no words and it's just 5 stars. I'm just like, oh my God, someone likes me. This is crazy. So support your local podcaster. Hit me with a 5-star review and I'll send you like a nice little message saying thank you. All right, guys, have a great rest of your week and I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.